And ask for apologies. Have we got any apologies?
I've not received any, Chair.
Oh, what?
I've not received any apologies, Chair.
All right. Okay. No apologies then. I've got no urgent items of business. The item 3 is declarations of interest. If you have an interest, either report it or identify it now, or if it becomes apparent during meeting, say whatever you need to say. Go on, Liz.
Item 5, declaring interest.
Right. The minutes of previous meeting, you'll find these on item 4 on page 4 through to page 10. Is there anything on?
I'll move them as a true and correct record.
All right.
Second them, Chair.
Everybody's happy with that? It's okay. I've got no items referred from scrutiny. Got no budget and policy framework items. We've got the non-key decisions as item 5. Additional restrictions grant. Duncan's taking this because Liz has declared an interest in it. Duncan.
Thank you, Chair. The purpose, short summary, is to consider criteria for allocation of funding from a further allocation of additional restrictions grant monies. The background, Chair, is the additional restrictions grant is a discretionary funding scheme which aims to support businesses severely impacted by coronavirus and its variants. The ARG scheme was first launched in 2020 to 21 financial year, with further rounds of funding being topped up in January 2021 and 1st of April 21. Broadwood District Council received a payment of £1,611,240, equating to £20 per head. The ARG scheme has been administered through the Economic Development Team and the Partnership Team, and to date, 302 grants have been awarded to small and medium-sized enterprises across the district. Reports have been brought to executive setting out how the scheme has been administered through the round, including the award criterion and grant conditions. The report sets out the requirements for administering this latest ARG award. Local authorities are encouraged to support businesses from all sectors that may have been impacted, including but not limited to hospitality, accommodation, leisure, personal care, the travel and tourism sector, group travel agents, tour operators included, wedding industries, and other businesses that may not have received other grant funding. This scheme will be extended to include businesses both in and outside of the business rates system. The reasons for the recommendation, colleagues, that this report sets out the proposals for administering the latest round of ARG funding to the value of £97,718,041. The grant is a much needed financial injection to businesses who are facing continued financial pressures as a result of COVID and its variants. On page 13, you will see the recommendations, and I will be prepared to move the recommendations when the chair allows. Thank you.
Any questions? Any additions to that? Say it again.
97,000, not 97 million. It'd be nice if it was.
All right, you've been a bit up to, you got mixed up with your own bank account then, didn't you? Yeah. Right. All right.
Sorry, Chair, can I just add, we have started the application process for the grant scheme, and we've had a number of businesses applying both in and outside of the priority sectors that are identified in the report. I just want to make members aware that it will be the case that we will need to refuse some applications from businesses because of the limited grant amount that we've got against the number of applicants that we've received. So it may be that members receive communication from businesses in their area with the disappointment, but unfortunately we just can't extend the grant out as we would like to all the businesses who need it. Just want to make you aware of that.
Yeah, and you're right, Natalie. I mean, it opened on a Friday, closed on a Monday, and you still have a subscriber, don't you? And I mean, 97 grand, it's neither use nor ornament, is it, for the number of businesses that we've got that wants to apply for it?
I'm prepared, Chair, then to move the recommendation on page 13 with the clarity. It wasn't 97 million, it was 97,000. I misread that. Sorry, thank you.
We don't say 97 million on here, does it?
No.
Oh, right. Right, no further questions. All in favour? That's carried. Next one is the tenant alteration and improvement policy. This Sandra's going to wax lyrical on this for about 20 minutes. Hi, Sandra.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, its purpose of the report is to advise members of the updated tenant alteration improvement policy. Bolsover District Council owns and manages its housing stock consisting of 5,019 properties. That was in August of last year. All tenants are entitled to make a request for alterations of improvements to their home, and the council will not unreasonably refuse permission. The council may impose conditions, and there may be genuine reasons why permission must be refused. The updated tenant alterations and improvement policy outlines Bolsover District Council's approach to considering requests made by a tenant to undertake works to their home to ensure that the housing stock is well maintained, and any changes do not have a detrimental effect on the value of or lettability of the properties. So if anyone's got any questions, Chair.
Right, you've heard the you've read the report. Mary.
Thanks, Chair. 2.7. I really don't understand it. So if I could get clarification on this today, please. Yeah.
Yeah, it is government legislation, but Karen can expand on it a little more.
Thank you very much. Yes, so if you look at page 28 to 29 of your pack, which is the actual policy itself, you'll see the legislative requirements of the compensation scheme. And it lists there some examples of when we are required to consider compensation if somebody moves out of their property and they've already had some works undertaken in their property that they've paid for themselves. So it's a legislative requirement that we outline how we're going to deal with this particular aspect of compensation, and there's some examples there as well. And if you require any further information, I'm more than happy to find it for you, Councillor Dooley.
Mary.
What if you die then, Karen, and you've made all these improvements to your property? How does that fare with this?
I'd need to get some more information for you, but my understanding is that if the executors or the estate family request that we consider it, then we'll consider it and pay any monies due to the family or to the estate. But I'll double check those for you.
Any further questions?
Yeah.
Go on, Mary.
2.8, formal appeals process. Has there ever been an appeals process on what the tenant wants to do and cannot do? Has there been an appeal?
To be honest, I need to find out more information about specifics. I don't have any specifics, but I'm not aware of a large number of appeals. They definitely don't come through to me in terms of any consideration of any appeals panel. So not that I'm aware of, but I'll get you some more data.
Because if we're saying no, we mean no, don't we?
Yes, yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Any more? No more? So you're all quite happy? Sandra?
Yeah, if there's no more questions, Chair, I'd like to move the recommendation that members approve the updated tenant alteration and improvement policy.
Is that seconded?
Second.
Seconded then. Everybody happy? You voting? Anybody voting?
Yeah.
You voting, Sandra?
Yeah.
Right, everybody's happy. I'll move on. I think it's you again, Sandra.
Yeah. Thank you, Chair. Purpose of the report, seek approval to commence consultation on a draft new council housing tenancy agreement to grant the Assistant Director of Housing Management and Enforcement delegated powers to adopt the tenancy agreement in consultation with the leader, deputy leader and portfolio holder for housing. So I would like to move the recommendation to approve the commencement of public consultation on the new council housing tenancy agreement at Appendix 2 and to grant the Assistant Director of Housing Management and Enforcement delegated powers to adopt this tenancy agreement in consultation with the leader, deputy leader and portfolio holder. Thank you, Chair.
There you go, straightforward, start consultation process. Everybody happy?
I would second the recommendation.
All right, thanks, Duncan. All in favour we are? Yeah. 52-week rent period. Sandra again. You're in demand today, Sandra.
Thank you, Chair. Purpose of this report is to consider moving from the current 48 weeks per year housing rent collection cycle to a 52-week rent collection cycle. Currently, the housing service collects rent over 48 weeks per year, enabling 2 rent-free weeks at the end of December, 2 more at the end of the financial year, which is near Easter. The term rent-free is misleading. The annual rent for a property is currently divided by 48 weeks instead of by 52. This has the effect of making the tenant pay more on those weeks in which rent is charged than they would if it were spread evenly across all the weeks in the year. The council's tenancy agreement contains a clause which states that tenants must pay their rent weekly in advance every Monday. It is proposed to move from a 48-week rent collection cycle to a 52-week rent collection cycle. This is an operational change to assist tenants who receive the universal credit form of benefits and allow for more efficient rent collection for the housing service. But can I also say, Chair, that I know that if you don't want to do it on the 48 week, you can still do it on the 52, because I think a lot of tenants, I know myself when I was a tenant, used to like that free rent at Christmas and things because it used to help, support the family. So I don't think it's, written in stone. If people do want to pay that, over a 48 week, they can pay that little bit extra to cover those rent-free in those periods. Thank you, Chair.
I think this authority has always been flexible with the way that it collects rent. I mean, these days people like to pay monthly. Some, the bank they do all sorts of different things.
Yeah.
And, moving from 48 to 52, I think is common sense. And, it's anyone, like you say, Sandra, that wants to pay the rent every, there's sort of 48 times a year rather than 52. I don't know why they want to do that more. Is there any questions on this? Clive?
I didn't know if you could see me or not, Chair. I can just see top of your head over there. What's that thing you used to hang his fingers over the wall and that? Can't remember what they call it. Anyway, I'm pleased about that from Sandra, because I've had the same experiences with people who do like that couple of 4 weeks over Christmas and New Year period. And I'm pleased now that they have got that opportunity to be able to do the 48, 52 or other things if we can fit it in. So I think it's good that we do look after all our tenants, and for those that do like it, we're making that provision for them. So I'm quite happy to go along with this, and certainly for us in finance, it's not much difference whether we take it in 52 or 48. We should still get same money in. Thanks, Chair.
Thanks, Clive. It stems from the days when we used to have rent collectors, and million council houses, and these rent collectors used to toddle off every whatever day it were, Monday or whatever. And towards end of financial year, you got a lot of administrative dealings to get on with, and also rent collector liked a bit of an holiday at the same time. You want to say something, Don?
Yes, I do. I agree with the recommendation, which doesn't include what you've just said. But the 52 week was one simple reason, was what you've just explained. It was to do with the rent collectors at that time, and we got rid of the rent collectors. there was a survey done on this, was there not? How many responses did we get?
I don't know.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
And I think there was only one of those that actually said, I'd like it because I save it up. Now, I don't agree with that. I think because all it does is add confusion, in my view, to the collection of the system. The recommendation is correct in terms of that, but I think you've got to be very careful. You start moving away from one thing to another. I can't believe if somebody wants to save money, they know when Christmas is, the date never changes. So if they were wanting to save money for Christmas presents, they would start really early, I would imagine, if doing that. I don't know, it worries me that we started change, we just go too far in terms of this. But I will be voting for the recommendation as outlined in the report.
Mary?
Yeah, when I started my tenancy 8 years ago, I wasn't given an option. It was just down that I was going to pay on 12 months.
In these days of direct debit, you know, it don't make any difference. It's what people do. Right, no further questions. It's been moved. Has it been seconded?
I'll second the recommendation.
All in favour? Against? Nobody? We'll move on. Right, this is Teresa's show. Teresa's got our treasurer. I've stopped calling it young treasurer now. She's treasurer. Over to you, Teresa. Take it with you.
Alison, can't see it, sorry. Sorry about that. This report covers the finances for the council for the next 4 years, starting 1st of April. During November and December 2021, I presented a revised budget for 21-22. Those figures are included in this report for completeness, but they've not changed from that time. I gave this presentation to audit scrutiny on the 20th of January, and although questions were asked by members, they didn't request any comments be brought back to this meeting. So this report includes revenue and capital expenditure, and I'll remind you of the definition of them on the next slides. General fund and housing revenue expenditure and incomes included, and I'll remind you of the difference between those on another slide. The report discusses council tax implications and HRA dwelling rents and details the capital programme. And I've listed the appendices here so you can see where to look for each bit. Just a reminder that the revenue budget is the amount spent on the day-to-day running of the council's services. This includes salaries, property and transport running costs, and payments to suppliers for goods and services. It also includes the borrowing costs of money spent on capital assets. Capital spending is mainly for buying, constructing or improving physical assets such as buildings, land, vehicles, plant or equipment. And as a council, we have a capital de minimis limit of £10,000, and anything below this level is automatically classed as revenue. So what is the HRA? HRA stands for Housing Revenue Account, as I'm sure you know. And because we have more than 50 properties, we must maintain a separate account containing all the income and expenditure relating to our housing stock. There's no discretion. We must have a HRA and we must abide by legislation. This is a ring-fenced account and must be kept totally separate from general fund. Housing dwelling rents provide the income for the HRA, and the main costs are repair and maintenance of properties, plus the interest and debt repayments relating to capital. The separation of HRA and general fund applies to capital as well as revenue expenditure,
And this is the reason we also split the capital programme. So what's general fund? General fund is anything that isn't housing. The largest sources of income are business rates and council tax. We also get income from fees and charges, but this is much less. We're still getting a bit of government grant, but how much longer we'll get this is unknown. The main cost of general fund is salaries. That's about £10 million a year. As I've said, there's no cross-subsidisation allowed. The two funds of HRA and general fund must be kept completely separate. This table shows the position of the general fund for each of the next 4 years. After undertaking the budget process, we have we've balanced nearly every year, as you can see on the top line. We've done this by using the NNDR Growth Protection Reserve to help smooth out the reductions in government grants. However, budget changes are likely to happen while we're in those years. The second line is where we've put funds on one side in 1920 to pay for the expected increase in pension fund costs. The increase was exactly as we predicted, 1% each year. The next line is an estimate for budgeting. We've included a council tax increase for future years. The percent is dependent on the financial settlement each year the government gives us. We included potential new income in this table for the first time earlier in this financial year. This is extra council tax and business rates income from extra dwellings and business rates we're planning to build. Business units we're planning to build. There's also income included for the crematorium and an interest income from loaning money to Dragonfly. This income is from our own plans and is necessary to plug the gap left by the big changes in government financing that I'll talk in detail about on the next slide. After rollover spending reviews for the last 3 years, we were expecting a 3-year settlement. We were expecting the outcome of at least more clarity on what the longer awaited changes to local government financing would mean for us. I'm sure you remember the reviews that have been ongoing for a number of years now around fair funding, abolition of new homes bonus, and fundamental changes to the business rates system. It was hinted that we might also hear what the levelling up white paper might mean for us. However, we got another 1-year rollover, which meant we got quite a bit in extra grants, as you can see from the slide. What we also saw in this spending review was a change to how grants paid to us from the government in recent years were calculated. You may recall that we are quite high on the table of deprivation that the government used to allocate funding to us in the past. But the fair funding review feedback was that grants would no longer be allocated based on deprivation, but on need. This is one of the main reasons under the reviews that we suffered so badly. Our level of need as assessed by the government wasn't anywhere near as high as our deprivation. But the new 2022-23 services grant was once again allocated based on deprivation. So it's hinted by some that this could be the start of levelling up. The Secretary of State wrote in a letter to all councils that the government wants to fully consider the future distribution of financing in consultation with councils. So hopefully this will be a positive change to the outcome of outstanding reviews. For now, however, from 23-24, our MTFP reverts to previous worst case assumptions until more certainty is received around damping or transitional arrangements. The way the business rate system works means we have to prepare the budget figures before we know the income for the year, so we always have to estimate it. In the years where we achieve more than we estimated, we put the excess into this NNDR Growth Protection Reserve. Recently, we've put other government funding in the reserve because we're pretty sure our business rates growth is going to be wiped out under the new regime. This reserve is why we effectively have a zero budget deficit in each of the next 3 years. It is being returned to the general fund and used to smooth out the losses in government funding. It runs out in 25-26, and that's why we still have a gap in the final year. But as long as the potential new income discussed earlier is received, the fact this reserve has been fully consumed should not pose as a problem. Council tax implications next. The referendum limits for 22-23 are the same as for last year. We're being limited by the government in the amount of council tax we can achieve. We're limited to the greater of 2% or £5, but because we only have a low tax base, £5 per property is more of a benefit to us than the tax base times the 2%. As I've mentioned before, the government assumes we'll increase council tax by the maximum allowed in all the calculations to allocate funding to us that they do. The level of increase each year affects the base of future years, and the proposed increase for 22-23 is 2.68%, which is £5 at band D. Onto the HRA. This shows the position of the HRA over the 4 years. Within the expenditure line, we have the repair and maintenance and supervision and management of the properties, which amount to nearly £12 million each year. Also included is the interest and debt payment of around £3 million each year. By far, the main source of income is from properties. Housing rents is 21.7 million in 22-23, rising to 23.1 in 25-26. And accounting regulations mean we have to charge a level of depreciation on our stock each year. This is used to fund some of the capital work on the council's housing stock. You can see that income is larger than expenditure at net cost of service level. So the net cost of service figure is actually an income figure, which is then reduced by the cost of depreciation. Transfers to reserves are also a cost and are to fund further future capital work within the HRA programme. Each year we're estimating a surplus and this will be put into a HRA revenue reserve. In October 2017, government announced a long-term rent deal for local authority landlords. We're allowed an annual increase to our rents of CPI plus 1%. Therefore, for 22-23, the increase is 4.1%, as CPI was quite high at 3.1% in September. We have assumed only a 2% increase as an estimate for all future years of the plan. And the next slide will put this into context for dwellings for you. It is inevitable during a financial year that there will be empty properties. This could be the changeover between tenants in a property or because of a management decision to leave the property empty while we undertake a capital scheme. We call these properties voids, and we have to make an estimate of these so we can reduce the dwelling rent income budget for them. For 22-23 to 25-26, the estimate for voids is 3% per year, and the income budget has been reduced by this amount. In 22-23, this figure is £673,000. So for each 1% change up or down, £224,000 can either be gained or lost. Where fees and charges have been increased, they have also been increased by 4.1% in most cases. Heating charges have not been increased, however, due to the changes made through the Capital Safe and Warm scheme. So what do the rent increases mean per property? A large proportion of our dwellings are let for social rent. Out of roughly 5,000 properties, 4,850 are social properties and about 150 are let at affordable rent. Affordable rent is charged on our new build properties and is calculated at 80% of market rent. The average new weekly rent charge for a social property will be £88.92, which is an annual increase of £155.4p and weekly increase of £3.23. The range of rents for social housing are included in the table, and obviously this covers a raft of different property types and sizes. The average new weekly rent charge for affordable property will be £117.11, which is obviously higher than social as it is close to market rents. The annual and weekly increases are £204 and £4.25 respectively, and the range of rents is again in the table. On to capital now. This shows a summary of the General Fund Capital Programme. It is fully funded without any new borrowing over the life of the programme, and a breakdown of the categories are shown in Appendix 4. This is the HRA Capital Programme, which is also fully funded. Again, a breakdown of the schemes is shown in Appendix 4. The schemes which are in the programme for 21-22 for both General Fund and HRA, if not spent, will be added to 22-23 when we've completed final accounts in June. And I'll bring details of those to you when I report the outturn. And that's the report, Chair.
Right, thanks, Teresa. Any questions, Teresa? I'm sure there's going to be a million.
One on the previous one where you've put the average rent increase on a 48-week basis. That would have to be changed if on
the slide was done before I knew they were changing,
Yeah,
but
I
it makes
understand
absolutely no difference to the figure, the amount that they have to pay.
It
in
won't make
total.
any difference.
Not for the year, no,
All
it's
right,
just split
thank you.
different.
Everybody's ecstatic. Clive?
I'm going to go on because obviously Teresa's given you a good outline of it all there. And I think, there's 1 or 2 points I have to make really just to, to bring back to members to see, where we are and where we're going. And I think one of the main things is the table on page 95, table 1, where it shows that we're balancing the budget at the end of the day. And it is down to potential new income that's going to balance that budget. And so the assumptions that we've made are pretty sensible ones at the end of the day. We've not gone over the top, so it should actually deliver it. And I certainly have conversations with Liz in office down there saying, you're going to realise this and whatever. But it does need, bearing in mind that there are assumptions, they're sensible assumptions, but it's not cash in bank at present. And the reason we need to keep the business rate reserve fund around is because if we don't meet some of these things, we need to have a reserve that we can top up. So we've got some sort of leeway in how we can make sure we do balance that medium-term financial plan without having to take really aggressive action to balance stuff, because obviously it's a commitment we have to have, and it's a legal commitment that we have to have in it all. As Teresa said, this year's, we thought it to be a 3-year settlement that makes it much easier for us to balance and look where we're going, or gives us better ideas, but it is only a 1-year settlement. So we benefited from the homes bonus revenue support granting it all, and that's just helped us through a bit in it. So it's given us a little bit more money, which again has gone into the NNDR reserve fund and to try and help us balance things and keep things going. Retained business rates was being looked at, and they're on about giving us 75% within all that end. But again, that's been looked at and reverted back to the original position. I think it's 50% still into it now. So, that was something we're perhaps looking forward to, but we didn't get it. However, we did get this lower tier services grant, which is, it's to all councils like ourselves that have missed it or missing out on some forms of the funding, house bonus and stuff like that, trying to level it up a bit, within the end of the day. It's not been mentioned, but salaries, we have put another 1% in this time. There was only 1% in the budget, but likely outcome of the settlement, it's going to be greater than that. So we've put another 1% in it. Unison, I think, have gone out and balloted and not received the right amount of votes to be able to call strike action. I think GMB are out at the present time and coming back sometime during February time to decide, what action they're taking on it all. So we have got 2% in there, but we have to remember that every 1% increase rise in salaries is around about £100,000. So it's quite a big sum. So if it does go up a bit, we've got to find that money, but we've got a few reserves to do that. In general fund, we've just got over 2 million end of day, which is adequate. It's not excessive in any way, shape or form. It's adequate to, what we would probably need to keep in there. And we've obviously got about 800,000 in the transformation fund, which is used for doing various things and, trying to increase our income to the council. As I say, council tax gone up 2.68% within this. And when we look at CPI, as it was in September, as it is now, I should say, it's between 4 and 5. And estimates are saying that, as we get further into the year, it's going to be rising maybe up to 6 or 7%. So at least, if nothing else, we managed to keep that rise below, quite a bit below what CPI is at this time, and is likely to be in future within it all. Council tax, as I say, we've gone up this £5 in it all because it's greater than the percentage that we would get. And this brings us in around about £112,000 a year. And that, again, is shown in the tables within the report and also in what Teresa said to us this morning. Again, I'll just touch on rents. It is going up by this 3.1% plus the 1% that we have to. So it's 4.1% in it all. It's what we have to do with government legislation. It's been going on for many years on that. But there again, that will be probably less than what CPI is, as the rents are increased in April this year. Voids, I do go on about this to Sandra, but there's a lot of work being done on voids end of the day, and we've got 3% in there now, and you've seen the figure that for every 1% that we lose if we aren't getting rent in. So it is important, but I know there's been a couple of new officer or a new officer set on, and I'll be corrected by Sandra if that's not the case, to try and ensure that voids are turned around quicker and that, so we don't lose as much. And we have to remember with voids, we don't just lose the rent on the void, we lose the council tax income, and we have to pay rates of council tax on them as well. So there's pretty much a three-way loss within it all. I don't think I'm going to say much else. Capital programs are what they are. The money's in there. We've committed to it at the end of the day, both in HRA and in general fund. But in light of a scheme that's going off in my patch at Woburn, the actual cost of the scheme is gone up quite considerably, really, from what the original estimate was of 9.1 million. Because of cost of materials and I suppose other factors in there. So there is now a bit of a look at it. So I think any new build we've got, we need to be sure that, the costings, the capital costings anyway, that we put in the budgets are sort of realistic at the time when we're going to start and do it, not 6, 9, 12 months back when we actually did that estimate in it all. That's me done on it all. There are recommendations on page 103 and 104. There's actually 13 of them, 1 to 13. I'm certainly not going to sit and read them all, and I'm sure there'll be 1 or 2 people that is in this group that are glad I'm not going to do that. But I'm happy either to move them now or again, like Teresa, take any questions any points that we might have missed, but if they're in, I'll certainly move those 1 to 13 on pages 103 and 104. Thanks, Chair.
Right, thanks, Clive. And I think Teresa's done extremely well in these uncertain times. I mean, we never know what's round corner. Government doesn't know what's round corner. We don't know what inflation rate's going to be. There's lots of imponderables. Well, that's our job, isn't it? Our job is to make sense of everything that's nonsensical and to continue to balance books, and at the same time trying to look to the future, trying to create hope and encouragement for people that we represent. And sometimes it can be difficult, sometimes it can be easy, but sometimes you just got to go for it and do your best. Right, Clive's moved all these recommendations on page 103 through to 104. Is that seconded?
Councillor McGregor, second.
No more questions? All in favour? That's carried. Thanks for that, Teresa. Did a good job. When you start and look at the amount of council tax that we levy and the amount of money that we spend, then you'll actually see how efficient and how beneficial Bolsover District Council is to local economy. That's right, Teresa, isn't it? There you go. Right, we'll move on, and it's exclusion of the public time.
Councillor McGregor, move exclusion of the public. Second it.
All in favour? That's carried. Yes.